Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, your host. My fabulous sidekick Sasha is off doing something amazing, no doubt, but I am not alone today. I'm joined by my friend Juliet Tabbara and super excited to have this conversation with her. As you know by now, because you listened to last week's episode, March is National Nutrition Month. So we're kind of putting a nutritional angle on all of the episodes for the month of March. And I think the listeners are going to find some super valuable information, just be really interested in your story, Juliet. So I'm really excited to dive in. But first of all, welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here. I am doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I am great. We are both enjoying beautiful sunshine. You're in sunny California. I am in currently sunny Denver, Colorado. And, that always makes for me my day a little better. You and I know each other. We've known each other for quite a few years, but we've never actually met in person.
Mhm.
I've been working with Cigna for years and years and years, and that's how I know Juliet through. So maybe you just want to kind of dive into that backstory, and then we can get the conversation into nutrition. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Pause. Look at that who just showed up. I was just
Oh,
telling the listeners that you were off doing something fabulous and amazing, and I was just going to take the show on my own with Juliet. But welcome, everybody. Welcome, Sasha, to the show. Woohoo!
Hi, Sasha.
the old razzle dazzle, everyone. The old razzle dazzle. Here I am.
What is a day without a little razzle dazzle? Come on.
It's not a real day, that's for sure.
Well, I just did the whole welcome to Juliet, and she was
Beautiful.
going to kind of go into our the story of how we know each other, and then we'll get into the really good stuff in a moment.
I love it. I'm here for it, guys. I'm here for it.
All right. Hi, Sasha. Um, so how we know each other. So Michelle and I go way back. Unfortunately, like you said, we've never met in person, but we've had a lot of conversations over the years. We started partnering at Cigna, where Michelle was one of our most valued health educators, and I wore all kinds of hats, working in a very small wellness department within Cigna for, gosh, almost 9 years, I think, um, in my former life, and so I coordinated health and wellness events for quite some time, seminars, coaching events for various clients across the US. And Michelle did a ton of those events. She was one of our most requested health educators over the years. So her and I had developed a relationship and a really good rapport. And I no longer work for Cigna, and fortunately, we've kept in touch and been able to continue to support each other professionally. So that's just a little background on how we met initially, and now here we are.
Yeah, and I think, Juliet, what really made me know that you were my people is I would often communicate with you about some questioning material that I had to present on behalf of Cigna in regards to nutrition.
Hmm.
And when you were like, I totally get it, I totally understand, I totally agree with you, I was like, oh, okay, all right, we can jam on this. And Sasha has had her own experience with nutrition as well. So I think we're going to have a really great conversation, and it's going to segue into what you are currently doing. But actually, Sasha, I'm going to let you ask Juliet some questions just to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, I'd love to. Juliet, thank you so much for being here and for just sharing your you, which is, I know when you had emailed me and you're like, you know, this is exciting. And I was like, just be you, just be authentically you. And that's what I want most. And I know the listeners want more as well. When it came to nutrition and health and wellness, what was the biggest motivator, or what was the number one thing that like lit your spark?
Oh gosh. Well, personally, I think it was just kind of hitting a rock bottom in my own health and realizing that I had to make some major changes or I was going to get worse. And just, going back to school, further educating myself on nutrition, integrative health, functional medicine, and really just learning the power that nutrition has over our health. That for me was kind of a turning point. And then from there, I slowly just started making some changes because I realized we do have so much control over some of these lifestyle factors, including nutrition. And even though you may get these diagnoses, for me, autoimmune disease, other chronic conditions that can be prevented and reversed through proper nutrition. That knowledge was power for me, and I really just turned it into um, just fuel to really, start making some changes in my own life. And then really it turned into kind of more of my passion and my mission to help other people.
Okay, so J.K. Rowling has a beautiful quote that says, "Found rock bottom is where my foundation was laid." Right? So you said you hit rock bottom, and that's when you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, something's got to change." What is it? What, if you don't mind? This is a hard one, but what did rock bottom look like for you?
So, and I hate to sound dramatic because rock bottom can be such a spectrum. But for me, so I was working full time at Cigna, like I had mentioned. Please ignore my whining puppy in the background.
We
Um,
love whining animals, trust me, and
okay,
babies
well,
and all kinds of things.
okay, she wants to be interviewed too. Um, so she, or no, not she, I was working full time, had just kind of hit a wall in my position at Cigna, wasn't very fulfilled with it. But was very grateful for it. I got a chance to work from home and had a bit of flexibility, but I also had the opportunity to go back to school and get my master's. So I was working full time, getting my master's in nutrition and integrative health, um, which was such an amazing program. And then I got pregnant with my son, and who is now 5, and continued working full time, working through my master's, which took several years, and then had my son, and my son didn't sleep for an entire year. Literally, I don't think he slept at all. And it's all a haze. I loved everything about it, but it was exhausting. And I think that time was kind of when I was so focused on him and so focused on school and work that I really just ignored my body. I didn't pay any attention to how I was feeling and what the signals that my body were giving me. And I wasn't getting enough sleep. I was drinking too much coffee. I was drinking too much wine at the end of the night. I was eating while working all the time just because I felt like I didn't have enough time. I would just kind of graze all day and, eating too much junk processed food because I felt like I was just, I was eating my emotions. I was eating because I was stressed or just because I felt like, oh, I deserve a break. I'm just gonna, have a few chips. And um, so it was kind of a snowball of things. And about a year or so after my son was born, I started really realizing, gosh, like, okay, so he's sleeping now a little bit, a lot better. But why am I still so exhausted? Just joint aches, just kind of all kinds of, GI symptoms, very irritable, moody, brain fog, and I kind of brushed it off for a while. All of my mom friends, oh, that's just being a new mom. And, that's part of it. And I'm like, no, I'm not okay with feeling like that. So, I started getting all kinds of random symptoms: dry eyes, dry mouth, swollen glands, stiffness and achiness, just exhausted, fatigue all day. Lots of, and then that turned into some chronic issues with my bladder, feeling like I need to, frequency go very often, and just a lot of pressure and pelvic pain. And I went to lots of different doctors, had lots of different testing done, and finally got some answers. But they were all very kind of scary to me. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, and then Sjogren's syndrome, and then interstitial cystitis. And then after some further testing, I had been told that I had a severe neurotransmitter deficiency. So to me, this was all very oh my God. Like I did not think, that I was that unhealthy. What the heck? I've always worked out. I've always, I thought I ate well at the time. But looking back, I was raised on a lot of processed convenience foods, and my mother did the best that she could, and she, tried to give us as many vegetables, but I was super duper picky, and I didn't, I ate chicken tenders, mac and cheese, that kind of thing, that the toddler food that most toddlers want to eat that kind of food. And I lots of sugary cereal, the cinnamon toast crunch and the Lucky Charms and the all of it. um and definitely some probably issues with emotional eating looking back. But yeah, so that was kind of my rock bottom, getting those diagnoses and then realizing that, there's no cure. There's no cure. That's what the doctors would say. Unfortunately, here's some medications if you want to deal with the symptoms, but I didn't want medications. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know, why did I get sick? What is causing this? And what can I do to keep this from getting worse? Not only that, but to reverse these conditions, put them into remission. So that is my rock. That was my rock bottom moment, and really just deciding I need to take this into my own hands and, you know, heal my body through lifestyle medicine, nutrition, stress management, all of it.
Well, thank you for all that detail, Juliet, because I think your story, is probably very similar to a lot of people who are listening. And yet we don't put two and two together that it's probably due to a lot of different things, but absolutely to the food that we're putting in our bodies. And, I know a lot of people can't see you, but I've seen you. I've seen pictures of you. You are tall, slim. You don't look like you were raised on processed foods, or you eat junk food, or you eat cereal. You're not the outward appearance of somebody who's sick. And I think that's something that we all have to grapple with, is whatever it looks like on the outside. Number one, you never know somebody's story. Number
Mhm.
two, whatever you look like on the outside, you might not even know your own story. So we have this I think standard in society where the outward appearance is what tells you if you're a healthy person or not a healthy person. And that's part of what Sasha and I are here for, is to explain to people that there is so much more to that puzzle. But I think as individuals, when we are experiencing things that don't make sense, and I would say probably part of what you were feeling was because you were a new mom.
Mhm.
Life was changing, sleep was not there, just busyness, maybe the uncertainty, also obviously the hormonal and chemical changes that happen. So all of that played a role in everything that was going on. But absolutely, the triggers and the activating events to have you really start to have a major negative shift in your health, those have been happening over and over and over for time. And then it's all the accumulation that came at once that now is going to be the catalyst that caused the expression of all of it. And for you to take it seriously and to question that, okay, no, this isn't right. And that's something I want to make sure that the listeners tap into, is to know your body well enough to know when something is normal versus when it's not normal. And then maybe to take Juliet's lead and question it, and not just be satisfied with, here's some medication, there's nothing we can do. So now you've been diagnosed, and if you could just clarify a little bit, I know they're way complicated, but I'm sure most people don't know what Sjogren's disease is. Some might not be familiar with Hashimoto's, interstitial, say it again,
Cystitis.
cystitis.
Interstitial cystitis. Yes.
Cystitis, thank you. Yeah. Can you just explain those briefly, and then talk about your path of getting diagnosed and then deciding, I'm going to figure out why and what that looked like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you so much for bringing up the point of, if even though you look healthy on the outside, how that can be so misleading, because even still to this day, years later, I have friends and family members that just don't understand. Like, oh, they make comments about, oh, you look great. Like, you must be feeling awesome. And it can be so misunderstood and sometimes isolating. So that's, I think, maybe another conversation. But to answer your question, so Hashimoto's thyroiditis is really where your it's an autoimmune condition where essentially your immune system is attacking your own thyroid. So I did have hypothyroidism most of my life, and turns out that Hashimoto's was just undiagnosed for most of that time. It does tend to run in my family. Sjogren's is a connective tissue disorder. So it's another autoimmune condition. Um, they tend to, go hand in hand. Once you get one, you're more likely to get others because your immune system is overreacting. But with Sjogren's, it can present in a lot of different ways. I had a lot of the most common symptoms, GI discomfort, joint pain, dry eyes, dry mouth, fatigue. The fatigue is also really common with the Hashimoto's, but you can also notice a sluggish metabolism. You can notice, your hair falling out, really dry skin, all kinds of things. It's definitely a spectrum. And then the interstitial cystitis is one of the most frustrating ones. Because it can really be debilitating. So that is really kind of like chronic pelvic pain. It can present different for different people, and most of these are women that get most women are the ones that get the autoimmune conditions and the interstitial cystitis. It's you know I don't know what the statistics are, but I would say maybe around 90% women. So women are way more likely. But the interstitial cystitis is a tricky one. It's kind of like a chronic bladder infection. For me, it felt like just very, very constant pain in my pelvis. Like my pelvic area will blow up like a balloon, and sometimes stay that way. And it's just a lot of pressure, a lot of feeling like I need to go, to urinate all day, every day, just to get some relief. Sometimes there's pain with urination. Sometimes there can be like stabbing, shooting pains. But that distension, just feeling like someone's blowing up a balloon inside your pelvic area. That's the best way that I know how to describe it. And it's very, very hard to diagnose because a lot of the symptoms can really, sometimes doctors will often think that it's a urinary tract infection. And sometimes it is a chronic urinary tract infection that just never goes away. So a lot of doctors will just prescribe antibiotics over and over and over and over and over again. And, they're not getting to that root cause of what is actually going on here. There has to be an imbalance in the body that's, causing this. Why are antibiotics not working? And in the grand scheme of things, most of us know now that the antibiotics are actually, causing things to get worse in the gut by killing off the good bacteria. So, yeah, in a nutshell, those are some of the conditions that I've been diagnosed with.
I can't even imagine what it's like to live with that kind of discomfort and uncertainty and not knowing and not having a clear answer. And I can only imagine it's incredibly frustrating and demoralizing. And you probably isolate and you don't feel like doing things. That affects your mental health. It affects
Absolutely.
everything, right? And so, and especially when you are trying to figure out the answers, and the reality is our bodies are very complicated, and oftentimes your doctor's not going to know because these are very specialized situations. However, I would say they are probably way more frequent than anybody knows because so many of them go undiagnosed,
Yeah.
or people just learn to suffer and live with it and think, well, this is just the way it is, so they don't really go through those hard steps and the hard process of of getting to the root cause. And antibiotics are one of the biggest culprits, as most of us know, but still they're being prescribed over and over and over and over. And that's like just continuing to put a band-aid on something. And then I'm going to keep cutting myself. I'll just put another band-aid on it, but I'm going to keep cutting myself, put another band-aid on it. Why don't I figure out how to stop cutting myself in the first place? But that
Right.
takes a lot of time and effort. Yeah.
And this is
I want to just, oh, sorry. Just want to circle back really quickly. When you said I'm not trying to be dramatic, there was nothing dramatic about what you said. It was so real. And I am so thankful for you just being open and honest about that, because you have no idea who else is suffering from this right now. I mean, I'm just thinking about the things that you endured and you went through. Sleep deprivation, I am a monster. Like, I am a monster. That's, if you guys listened to the last maybe 2 times ago, that's my non-negotiable is sleep. And I learned that because I was sleep deprived through my 2 other children. And then additionally, when you have children, your hormones are everywhere and nowhere, and everywhere and nowhere. And so there was nothing dramatic about, or not dramatic, or I just thank you for sharing your testimony, because someone's going to hear this and they're going to say, okay, something has to change, because if nothing changes, nothing changes.
absolutely. And that's exactly what I was going to say is it's never fun for me to talk about having these conditions. I don't like labels, and I really don't like identifying with these conditions. They are not who I am. They're just part of my journey. And the whole point of me sharing this is really to help other women that may be struggling with similar conditions, and maybe they haven't yet gotten their diagnoses. Maybe they don't realize what they can do, and how much power they actually have to take control of their health if and when they do get some of these similar diagnoses. So that's why I'm here, and I'm hoping to help others in the process from what I've learned.
One quick question: was all of this triggered after pregnancy?
It was absolutely triggered, I believe, at that time. But, it takes years to get that sick. Years of antibiotics, from having urinary tract infections as a young adult, even before this. Years of probably, putting the wrong food in my body, and not getting enough sleep, and drinking too much, and exercising too hard, and not finding healthy ways of managing stress as a young adult, and a whole snowball of things over the course of my life that probably really wreaked havoc on my gut, and caused my immune system to go into overdrive. And then, like you said, the shift of after pregnancy, all the hormones and changes that we go through, in combination with the fact that my self-care was really, really poor, and I wasn't managing my stress well, and I was not sleeping. So yes, absolutely, I think that was the recipe for the perfect storm.
Well, and I want to highlight that point because, um, especially talking to the YBI, the young, beautiful, and invincibles out there listening, just because nothing appears to be wrong doesn't mean something isn't brewing inside you.
Exactly.
Your symptoms might not have manifested yet, or they're showing up as something else that you think it is. And you're not taking it seriously because you're just fine. You can still think and function. You have energy. You exercise. You eat right most of the time. Oh, who needs sleep? We don't need that. Look at me. I have so much energy. I'll worry about sleep later. Stress, it's just the way I am. I can't help it. This is your future self right here. Juliet is your future self. Now, hopefully not, but years of abusing the human that you are in charge of is probably going to manifest at some point in some way. Not everybody's going to manifest it in the same way, but certainly when we don't take care of ourselves, and that means proper nourishment, proper hydration, plenty of sleep, little fight or flight reactions, things for joy, right? All the things that Sasha and I talk about and will continue to talk about forever. If you neglect those things for an extended period of time, or too many of them, it is going to show up in some way. So that is just a little bit of, crystal ball analysis for anybody who thinks, oh, well, that won't be me. I hope not, but
Mhm.
something will be if you don't embrace healthy lifestyle habits and learn from these experiences. So, Juliet, when you got the diagnosis and you refused to take the answer, there's no cure, sorry, tough luck, live with it. What did that first step for you really look like?
Well, fortunately, I was at the time studying for my master's in nutrition and integrative health. So I was getting the knowledge that I needed um, to learn about some of these conditions and how food can really play a role. So I started really just playing around in my own diet, and I was actually fortunate to find a naturopathic doctor that really was able to help me. With some figure out my food sensitivities, and also supplements that could help for nutritional deficiencies. So really just continuing on my educational path, learning as much as I could about which foods to maybe take out of the diet that help with some of these autoimmune conditions. For me, I started with gluten and then cut dairy. Still to this day, don't eat any gluten or dairy. Um, and then eventually, just played around with some other foods. The interstitial cystitis triggers can be really, really tricky because they change. They can change for people very frequently. So, and sometimes you can eat or drink something and have a symptom, and then other times you won't, which is very hard with food sensitivities. Um, so now, I'm a lot less restrictive than what I used to be, but I definitely am very, very aware, and listening to my body. If I feel like a flare is coming on, then I'm definitely avoiding all of my triggers. But I don't eat any more dairy and gluten at all. And I also don't eat any refined sugars. Um, uh, on top of that, I've significantly cut alcohol to just an occasional drink, maybe once a week, one or two drinks, which used to be a nightly thing for me, one or two drinks nightly, and they were big pours. Um,
Mhm.
so, coffee, I have cut that for now. I do love my coffee, but I did switch to decaf for a while and acid free, which is easier on the bladder. So that has definitely helped too. And now I don't do coffee and I don't miss it. I don't need the caffeine. I have a lot more energy now than when I was drinking it, even on a good night's sleep. Um, and what else? Did I answer your question? I got a little sidetracked.
Yeah, no, that totally did, and I think just to put that all in a nice little package, mainly what you're doing is you're eating real food and you're avoiding things that cause the inflammatory response to kick in. So,
Exactly.
gluten, everybody has a degree of sensitivity to gluten. Some
Mhm.
people it's very, very minor, some people they're gonna die. But everybody has a degree of sensitivity. It's inflammatory to everybody. Everybody has a degree of sensitivity to dairy. Some it's very minor, some it's very, very severe. But everybody has a degree of inflammation that comes along when you consume dairy.
Mhm.
Caffeine, caffeine triggers the release of cortisol. It's very irritating to your system. So again, everybody's degree of sensitivity is different. Alcohol is poison. It's also sugar, so it does all of those things. So all the things that you're talking about, they are in some way to the body viewed as poison, right? And anytime poison is introduced to the body, your body's job is to try to purge you of it, get rid of it, so the inflammatory response kicks in. Well,
Yeah.
if you already have an autoimmune issue or three, the last thing you want to do is exacerbate an inflammatory response, and that's what cutting out those things will do. It will squash the trigger of the inflammatory response. What are some things that you started consuming more of since you cut all this stuff out? I mean, this is often what people say, well, I can't eat anything because I was just diagnosed with celiac. I'm like, actually, you can eat a whole bunch of
Oh,
things.
yeah. Absolutely. And I actually did a couple of elimination diets years ago, where you eliminate a lot of the most common foods that people are allergic or sensitive or intolerant to. Um, and you eliminate them for several weeks and then you reintroduce them back in one at a time to see which ones you react to. And so that was very, very restrictive, but it's a really great way to identify, any sort of food sensitivities or intolerances, because the testing can not not always be, 100% accurate. It can be helpful, but I think the elimination diet can be super beneficial for a lot of people. So to answer your question, what I ate, yes. So I started eating so many more whole foods, just a wide variety of veggies that maybe I wouldn't have even thought to eat before. Cause, we all get into our patterns of eating the same thing over and over again. I used to eat out all the time and I never really realized how much I ate out until I, significantly cut back on, the dairy and the gluten. I realized, I have so much more control over what goes into my food when I make it in my own kitchen. I have a very simple palate of what I found out. I started really appreciating the flavor of foods in their more natural form. So, just lots of roasted veggies, lots of, quinoa, brown rice, salmon, all lots of fish. And love me some warm oatmeal in the morning or a chia seed pudding. And I would have never thought to have a chia seed pudding in my 5 years ago, but it's like one of my dates or my favorite food like in the whole world. My husband makes so much fun of me. He's like, what is that, Charlie? It's a date. It's so delicious. It's like nature's candy. um so, lots of nut butters and just fresh fruits and veggies. I live at the farmer's market now. I go at least once a week. I stock up with what's local, what's in season, and try to just, plan my meals around that.
That's beautiful. Sasha, I feel like you have a question burning inside you.
I'm just over here excited and absorbing both of your brains and how wonderful you both are. The question, I mean, I have questions written down because I'm just like in awe of all of it, but just I love that you trusted yourself, you trusted your intuition. So you said you went and got your master's. What was your bachelor's in, if you don't mind sharing? Was it also in food
Yeah, no,
or nutrition?
my undergrad was actually in psychology.
Okay.
So which is still a passion of mine. I love, positive psychology. I implement that into my coaching as well.
Yeah. So you went from psychology to really just getting into your you and saying, okay, I also not only want to understand them and master emotions and the psyche, but I also want to understand how to better function, feed, and fuel my vessel.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then from
Yeah,
there, I realized that there was still so much more to learn. And, I mentioned functional medicine earlier, and which really, for those that aren't really familiar, it's understanding, the why behind, why are we getting sick? Why are we having these symptoms? So, really, I wanted to understand how to identify and address the root causes of these symptoms, which one of the biggest root causes for me was the food sensitivities and the unmanaged chronic stress. So I actually learned, I was able to kind of put those pieces together when I went back to get my certification in functional medicine health coaching, um, which, really allowed me to just kind of put what I was learning into practice on myself. And then, realizing that I wanted to start helping other people do the same.
and I love that story. I mean, I've been doing roughly what I do sort of for about 25 years, but it's shifted a lot in the last 10 years to more of the coaching. And it really started, I'm going to give Cigna credit. It started when I was doing on-site health fairs for Cigna. And I often did health coaching at the end. And, some would have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or whatever. And I would ask them, well, what are you doing? Like, why is this happening? Well, I don't know, but I'm on medication for it.
Mm,
And it really bothered me that people who had conditions didn't even understand their own bodies,
yeah.
didn't understand why that happened. Oh, it just happens. It's just the way it is. We just say this is just how life goes. Unfortunately, our Western medicine, we are a disease care system. We are not a healthcare system.
Mhm.
And this shift to functional integrative medical practice, I think, is amazing. For most people, the reason they don't go that route is because insurance doesn't cover it.
Mm.
So I'm going to tell all of you out there who are struggling or suffering with some kind of physical issue that you can't seem to figure out, there's a very good chance that if you seek out a functional integrative healthcare practitioner, they will help you figure it out. You are going to pay for it. That's the reality of where we live today. And I've done this myself as well. I've always been a why. I want to understand, number one, for me, but also so that I can help other people, so I can explain it to them, so that they can understand it and realize that, oh, well, when you break it down like that, that's not that hard to comprehend. And I look at it as an investment. I am investing in understanding me. And that, I think, actually is every human's number one job, is to truly understand yourself and know when something's not right so that we can correct it and show up to be the best people that we can be. Hopefully, share our message and help others who might be struggling with something similar or different. But I think, your story also probably really resonates with people because a lot of times when they see the end product, like maybe you and me and Sasha, we're sort of the end product. We've been living the healthy lifestyle for a little bit of time now. Well, people assume that, well, we've always done that. And you don't struggle. It's easy for you. It's easy for you to say no to cake. It's easy for you to not drink at night. It's easy for you to no, I grew up on decent food, but same thing. I grew up when the food pyramid was, oh, eat your grain, 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 grain. Doesn't even have to be whole grain, just eat grain, lots of it,
Mhm.
lots and lots and lots of grain. We know that's all complete nonsense. So, and same, our parents did the best they could with the information they had, the information we literally were fed at the time, and to show that you can make changes. And yes, it's hard, but I bet living with Sjogren's and Hashimoto's and cystitis is harder, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So I think we have like given so much out there for people to digest. Sash, do you have any final questions you want to ask before we?
Literally digest.
You got that, huh?
Pun intended.
I mean, it's just beautiful. Again, you guys, lean on your intuition, lean into what it is that, your body is, it's screaming. Do you have a headache? Are you constantly using the restroom? Is it your number two, like not a pleasant number two? Like, listen to your body. These are screaming for you to listen. And even if it's something as simple as, okay, no more soda, and this week I'm going to focus on pumping water, do it. you know um that's what we're here for. We're support. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the stuff that these women know because their brains, and it's beautiful. But what I do know is that I leaned into my intuition and I said, I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the way I look. I don't feel my me. I don't feel my best. And I know that there's something out there for me to do, and I can do it. And so that's what I did. And that's exactly what Michelle did. It's the same thing that Juliet did. And don't be intimidated. Your journey is your journey. It's not my journey. And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with is, you guys, you don't have to be perfect. You do not have to be perfect. It's step by step. You don't run a mile in one giant step. You take several small steps to finish line. So don't get intimidated and just keep on keeping on. And before you know it, you're going to look behind you and you'll say, wow. And not only that, everyone else around you will say, wow, what did you do? And because you leaned on your you, and because you figured out what it is that I need to eat, drink, say, breathe, sleep, all these things, people are going to notice a change and they're going to say, I want what he or she has. How do I get that? And you're going to say, find your you.
And do the work. It's hard work. That's the reality of it. That is always a beautiful way to wrap up. But I want to give Juliet an opportunity for a couple of closing thoughts as well. Anything you want to share with the listeners that we haven't covered?
Yeah, just one last thing I was wanting to mention is, not only was nutrition such a big factor in my own healing, but I have become very passionate about self-care as well, because, we can eat as close to a perfect diet as possible, if that's even possible, which I don't think it is. But we can be doing all the right things with nutrition. And if we are not addressing our chronic unmanaged stress, unfortunately, we are never going to heal. So we've got to find ways to really bring routines in to help, calm, relax, bring more joy, um, and really just make the time to where, like you were saying, Sasha, the time to listen to our bodies. We have to prioritize that, even as busy moms juggling work and school and all the other things in life. Making that time to take a walk outside and soak up the sunshine, or write in your gratitude journal for even just 5 minutes. Stop and take a few deep breaths if you're feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't have to, you don't have to rearrange your whole day, but just scheduling in breaks. I used to never take breaks. Now I take breaks all the time. Most of my day is a break. And I get so much more done. I'm way more productive. Um, so yeah, just really prioritizing that self-care for me um, was a huge game changer, and still is going to be something that I will um, continue with, and would love to, empower other women to prioritize as well.
That is wonderful. I love different perspectives, but I really love it when a guest comes on and literally echoes the exact same message that Sasha and I have. So thank you so much, Juliet, for sharing your story and your information. I know somebody's going to hear this and bells are going to go off in their minds. So you have changed lives just by coming on with us. We're super grateful. Thank you so much for your time. Sasha, is always beautiful to see you, my friend. I'm glad you flew in to make it. That was a lovely surprise.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.